Hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here today and to be welcoming a very prominent group from Congress. We have with us a delegation led by the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And I want to say that he has been not only a strong supporter of Ukraine, it's his leadership that has moved the Ukraine supplemental, the money for Ukraine, from the Senate and now to the House. So he and a group of prominent Ukraine supporters also in the Senate are here and have had great discussions with the leadership in order to hear what's needed and also to hear the urgency of that need on the battlefield and to help Ukraine win. So without further ado, thank you very much. Leader Schumer.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Ambassador. And first, I want to thank the Ambassador for helping us in so many different ways. She does an amazing job. She represents the outstanding part of the Foreign Service in the United States. They're just great. And second, thank all of you for coming and making time. I am joined by we are a powerful team, and that's what got this aid passed in the Senate. Just great teamwork on part of our caucus, and we have 4 of the strongest leaders on Ukraine here. Senator Reid, you'll hear from each of them after you hear from me. Senator Reid, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Bennett, Senator Hassan. So first, why are we here? We had to be here. We had to be here. There was no choice. This is an imperative, an obligation, because so much is at stake. So much is at stake here in Ukraine. Obviously, the freedom of Ukraine is at stake. And that is so, so important, not only to the Ukrainian people, but to the world. These beautiful people who we have seen and learned about on our trip here and before need our support. But it goes beyond that. We are here because the United States right now is at a turning point, an inflection point. If we don't stand by our allies around the world will shirk and move away from us. If we let our enemies, the autocrats of the world, succeed here, they will not stop. They will not stop. And we will see greater trouble and conflict in Europe, but not just in Europe, in China, with Iran, with the Middle East, and everywhere else. And the United States, which has done so much for freedom in the world, for peace in the world, for security in the world, particularly since World War II, if we turn our back on Ukraine, it has implications that go for a long time. And it will mean that for decades, America will lose out diplomatically, politically, economically, and militarily. So we had to be here. We are so impressed with President Zelensky, his strength and his power and his commitment. We commented he looks younger today than he was 2 years ago with all the when we first met him, with all the travail on his shoulders. He's an amazing man. And we have come here to tell the Ukrainian people, we are with you. The United States is with you. We will not abandon you. We will fight and fight and fight to get this needed aid to you and to your brave soldiers. We went to the cemetery, one of the cemeteries. It was a parking lot until a while back. We saw newly dug graves because there will be more people who will die. And we saw the faces of the brave men and women who had lost their lives, some of whom had lost their lives inevitably because they didn't have all the ammunition that they needed and the need to protect themselves. And so we're here to tell the Ukrainian people, we stand with you. We're also here to tell Europe we are not abandoning Europe. The United States will not abandon Europe. We have to stay there, part of NATO, which has been such a most successful alliance, one of the most successful alliances in history. We cannot abandon them, and we're telling Europe and NATO that. We're also here to let America know the consequences of not doing this important supplemental package, which contains the military and economic aid that Ukraine so desperately needs. We have been told by President Zelensky, we have been told by American and Ukrainian officials that without the aid, Ukraine will lose the war, with the dire consequences to the United States and the West. They will lose the war. We were told that at Avdiivka, if there had been more weaponry available, the outcome would have been different. More ammunition, the outcome would have been different. We were told by an American official that if Ukraine doesn't get the aid, Putin could be right at the Polish border all too soon. All too soon. So without the aid, Ukraine, America should know, Speaker Johnson and the House Republicans should know, without the aid, we will lose the war. But conversely, we were told by just about everyone we saw, American, Ukrainian, military, political, diplomatic, that if they get the aid, if Ukraine gets the aid, it will win the war. Ukraine is valiant. It has great people, great fighters. They're not asking for a single American to die on the battlefield of Ukraine, but simply give us what they need. And there are many things they need, but we outlined some of them, including air defense, which has been so successful, including HIMARS and ATACMS, including remote anti-mining and long-term ammunition, all of which is made available in the supplemental package that we passed in the Senate with a very strong vote. We are here to talk directly to Speaker Johnson. We are going to do all we can to tell him what we have learned and, frankly, to pressure him to do the right thing. We tell Johnson that the weight of history is on his shoulders. And if he turns his back on history, he will regret it in future years. We are here to tell Speaker Johnson, come to Ukraine. Visit just who we visited and anyone else you want. See what we saw. And it will be virtually impossible for any person of decency and goodwill to turn his back on Ukraine. So we'd ask him to come here. Speaker Johnson, come to Ukraine, see what we saw, witness what we've witnessed, and we're confident that if you did that, you would understand how important it is to have this aid. And we also tell Speaker Johnson, don't let politics get in the way of something so important. Don't let this, it's not the same as 1938, but there are similar resonances. It's not the same as 1916, but there are similar resonances. And we tell Speaker Johnson, don't let politics get in the way. Don't let blind obeisance to Donald Trump prohibit you or your colleagues from voting for this package. If Speaker Johnson put this bill on the floor today, we're confident it would pass with a large number of both Democrats and Republicans. So it's really in his hands. Again, Speaker Johnson, history is looking down upon you. They're looking over your shoulder. Rise to the occasion. Finally, on a personal note for me, my ancestors came from a place 3 hours from here called Chortkiv. When the Nazis rolled into Chortkiv in 1941, they asked my great-grandmother to assemble her larger family, which was well known in the community, on her porch. And about 35 people gathered from ages 85 to 3 months. And they made the Jewish people gather in the town square to witness. They told my grandmother, leave, you gotta leave, all of you leave, you gotta leave Chortkiv. She said, we're not moving, and they machine gunned all of them down. I would have had a lot more aunts and uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins. had the world stood up to the brutal dictator named Hitler. Well, there's another brutal dictator, Putin, challenging the world. And if we don't stop him, it will have huge and unforeseen consequences for Ukraine, for Europe, for the United States, for the world. We must stop him by supporting this aid package to Ukraine. Chairman Reid.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Ambassador. My colleagues, thank you. I particularly want to thank all of my colleagues, especially Senator Schumer, for their great leadership in getting the supplemental package through the United States Senate. Ukraine's fight is our fight. It's the fight of democracy everywhere. Because with Putin's barbaric attack against Ukraine, he signaled that he was attacking decency and democracy throughout the world. We understand if he succeeds in Ukraine, he will not stop. He will continue to undermine democracies throughout this region. And his actions will probably be imitated by countries around the globe, authoritarian countries that wish to overcome their neighbors. But fortunately for the whole world, courageous Ukrainians stood up to Putin, led with courage and great determination by President Zelensky. And we salute that courage, and we salute your president. What you are doing today is protecting not just the Ukraine, but every democracy throughout the world. It's no surprise that the Russians are being aided by China, North Korea, Iran. This is a conflict that is global between democracies and autocracies, between countries that believe in the dignity of the individual and those countries that believe it is just a matter of the power of the emperor or the president, supposedly. We have a fight that is global in nature. Now, without our supplies, Ukraine will fail. With our supplies and resources, Ukraine will triumph, NATO will be stronger, democracies everywhere will take a sigh of relief and feel more confident, much more confident about the future. Now, the United States today, and now it is in the hands of Speaker Johnson, is asked to send resources. Give the Ukrainians the tools and the weapons to fight the fight, and they will succeed. If we do not do that, we will soon be asked to send young Americans, because he will not stop with Ukraine. And as someone who had the privilege of leading young Americans in our Army, I would much rather send resources to the courageous Ukrainian people than the sons and daughters of our country. So the choice should be very clear to Speaker Johnson and to every American. Do we want to support democracy and freedom and respect the courage of the Ukraine, or do you want to simply capitulate to a barbaric attack by Putin, which would be a precursor to other attacks? I think it's pretty clear. We must help Ukraine, and we must do it now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal.
I'm Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, and I've been here 4 times before. The last time that I spoke to many of you was in the basement of a hotel in Kyiv, because Kyiv was under attack from the air at the time. These attacks are real to you. To us, they are an abstraction. We can talk about them in the vague rhetoric of global politics, but to you, it is a matter of survival. And so to the people of Ukraine, let me just say again, we will stand with you today, tomorrow, and forever. And to Speaker Johnson, as Senator Schumer has said so well, if you come to Ukraine and you see the cemetery that we saw today, and think of the loved ones whose hearts have been broken, if you go to the wall in Kyiv that I visited to place flowers there and see the people of all ages who have perished to sustain democracy, you will have no choice, because America has no choice. Very simply, it is pay now or pay much more later. Pay now in providing arms to the brave fighters who are bleeding and dying, or our own young men and women will be bleeding and dying on the battlefields of Europe. Pay now, or Vladimir Putin will be having dinner in Kyiv and Lviv, and he will occupy this country, and he will commit the kinds of war crimes and atrocities that we saw in Bucha, which I visited, where he shot women and children in the head and buried them in mass graves. Vladimir Putin is a war criminal, a thug, and another Hitler. And we must respond sooner rather than later, because we will pay much more if we fail to heed the call of history. We've heard about the need of Ukraine for more air defense, more mine detection and disruption equipment, and maybe most important, the kind of long-range artillery that can wreck and destroy the bridge that connects Crimea. And we will work and fight for the supplemental that contains all of this military assistance and humanitarian relief, so that Ukraine can survive and reconstruct what it has lost in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And let me say, it is also more than a matter of the supplemental. The United States must enforce sanctions more stringently and toughly. My subcommittee in the Congress, the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation, will hold a hearing this Tuesday which will document that these sanctions are often a sieve. They are often so porous that American semiconductors and chips and other parts and components go into Russian weapons, not directly, but through other parties and other countries. And that flow of support is unacceptable. And we will work for stronger enforcement of the sanctions. And President Biden has proposed new sanctions to match the pace of Putin's savage invasion. Finally, let me say, every time I meet with President Zelensky, I'm inspired again. But most movingly, I am inspired by the people of Ukraine, whose resolve and resilience reminds me of the stories I heard about the Battle of Britain and the people of the United Kingdom who were under attack every day and who held on until America came to their aid. We are at a turning point in this conflict. If we do not provide this aid, as one of the generals said to us, the lines will break. People have been lost already because America has failed to act as quickly as it should have. But there is time now to make it right and to be on the right side of history. And to Speaker Johnson and all who will listen to him, please do the right thing. To my friends in the House, lead or get out of the way. lead or get out of the way, because history will judge you harshly if you block this very necessary American aid to Ukraine at a time when humanity's future, not just your country's, but humanity itself, is at stake.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader, for bringing us, and Madam Ambassador, thank you for your service, and also to all the people working for our State Department and other, and representing the United States here so well. For all of us, and the reason that we're here is that Ukraine is not in a fight just for Ukraine. Ukraine's in a fight for democracy, and Ukraine's in a fight for freedom and for the entire world. And the Ukrainian people have done everything that the free world could have asked of the Ukrainian people. Ukrainian people have taken back half the territory that Putin stole from Ukraine. They've won battle after battle after battle since the Battle of Kyiv at the very beginning of this invasion 2 years ago. The success in the Black Sea is almost impossible for us to understand. What Ukraine has been able to do with the resources that it has to push Putin out of the Black Sea and feed the rest of the world. And nobody in Ukraine asked for this invasion, quite the opposite. President Zelensky didn't ask to be president during this invasion, quite the opposite. But they have stepped up for the rest of the world, and the world could not have asked anything more of the Ukrainian people. And now it's time for the rest of the world to do our part. And it's up to the United States of America to lead that. It is really important under Senator Schumer's leadership that we were able to get 70 votes in the U.S. Senate to support this new package. You almost get 70 votes in the U.S. Senate for nothing, and certainly nothing hard. But we had a lot of the Democrats support this, and we had 22 Republicans support it. Broad bipartisan support, because the American people understand how important this fight is, and they understand the sacrifices that the Ukrainian people have taken on our behalf and on behalf of democracies around the world. And for all the reasons that my colleagues have said, it's very important for us as a country to finish this job. And just as in prior centuries, and that the leader referred to, there were voices of isolationism in the United States that said that we're separated by these two oceans. This fight is not our fight. We now know how interconnected this world is. And as somebody whose mother was born in Warsaw in 1938 and knew what it meant for the United States to finally make a decision to overcome the isolationists in our country, to provide leadership that the rest of the world needed at a moment when the world desperately needed it, this is one of those moments again. And I also want to thank the people of Ukraine for the inspiration that they've given to all of us and to the rest of the world. And I know we'll be with you until the very end. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hassan.
Well, thank you, Senator Schumer, and Madam Ambassador, to you and your entire team here. Thank you for everything you've done to make this trip possible. To the people of Ukraine, what an honor it is for me and for our delegation to be here and to stand with you on the eve of the anniversary of Putin's brutal, unprovoked, and unjustified invasion of your country. As my colleagues have said, President Zelensky, the people of Ukraine have inspired all of us. They've also reminded me, too, of some of the lessons that I learned from family. My father was a veteran of World War II. He survived the Battle of the Bulge, and he was very clear that evil cannot be appeased. Vladimir Putin is evil, and the people of Ukraine are standing up to him to stop this unprovoked brutality, the war crimes, the unconscionable actions that we have seen from Putin day in and day out. Most recently, as Putin may be sensed with some of the comments from our colleagues in the House of Representatives, he has sensed indecision or weakness, and we saw with the murder of Mr. Navalny exactly how that gets translated. The world is watching how the United States and Europe responds. I come from New Hampshire, and our state motto is live free or die. We take those words seriously. Our colleagues need to take those words seriously. There's another phrase that Americans use a lot. We say, freedom isn't free. Well, of course, the Ukrainian people know that better than anyone, sacrificing their lives, putting at risk their families, their way of life, to stand up for freedom. Well, the world is watching whether the United States will continue to stand up for freedom. Iran is watching, China is watching, North Korea is watching what we do. Freedom isn't free. Americans know that. Americans know that we need to get these necessary resources to the people of Ukraine. They're just asking for our resources while they are putting their lives on the line. So I ask my colleagues in the House to do everything they can to convince Speaker Johnson and to support Speaker Johnson in his efforts. He says that he wants to help Ukraine. It's time now for him and his colleagues in the House to do that. Again, what an honor it is to be here and to stand with the people of Ukraine. We are inspired by all of you. Thank you.
Now you can see why we have a great team and how we got this done in the Senate. We're going to take a few quick questions from the local press.
Thank you. First question is from Espresso, Italia.
Thanks so much. Thank you for visiting. So Ukraine has signed the security agreement with Great Britain, France, Germany, and Denmark. Thanks so much. And the Ukrainians are waiting to the official security guarantees with the USA, one of the most important allies of Ukraine. Why is President Biden not ready to provide security guarantees for now, when it will happen?
Well, speaking for ourselves, we want to do everything we can to strengthen the alliance between the United States and Ukraine, and this is something that we will look at very, very seriously.
Next question is from Mariana, Radio Liberty.
And I've been told by a very astute worker that it's your birthday today, so congratulations.
Happy birthday. If we were in the United States, we would sing to you.
In Ukrainian.
But we will spare you that.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, what is the chance of allocating aid to Ukraine when Congress returns from vacation, and do you have plan B if the House of Representatives will not approve a new package of aid to Ukraine?
Look, we are going to fight so hard for this, and make no mistake about it. There are a good number of very powerful House members who are for the supplemental, Republican House members. And if Speaker Johnson were simply to put it on the floor, it would pass with a large majority, in my opinion. And so we are going to pursue this. We think we have a very good chance of getting this done. As I said, Speaker Johnson, if he were to hear what we heard, it's hard to believe anyone could turn down that aid to Ukraine. No obeisance to Donald Trump or anybody else. He should do the right thing, and we're very hopeful and stalwart on getting him to see the right thing.
Thank you. And the last and final question is Andriy from Channel 24. Andriy?
Thank you.
It's not your birthday, is it, Andriy?
Yeah, it's a pity, but
Okay.
Ambassador Brink and dear senators, thank you so much for your support and for your inspiring speeches we had today. I would like to add, dear Senator Schumer, that my mother's family also comes from Cherkiv neighborhood, so we district, so we're basically from the same neighborhood. But my question is about the efficiency of sanctions. As Senator Blumenthal told us today, President Biden has announced new, almost like more than 500 new sanctions against Russia. But still we can see that Russia is still able to prolong the war, to continue the war, to build new missiles and drones, and we can see that Western components are part of these drones and missiles, and including semiconductors and microchips from the United States. So are those new sanctions better, stronger, more crucial to Russia? What is the difference? And when we can see the tangible results of the sanctions regime?
Okay, so let me first say that nothing will do more for Ukraine than passing the supplemental. So we don't want anybody on the other side to say, well, let's do sanctions instead of the supplemental. We have to do the supplemental and then do sanctions. These sanctions are a good step. We should continue to look at every sanction we can to make sure that Russia pays a price economically and in every other way for its horrible actions here in Ukraine and in many other places around the globe. And we will pursue sanctions in every way we can. Senator Blumenthal is having a hearing in the subcommittee that he chairs called PSI on Tuesday, and I'll call on him to say the last word on sanctions.
I just want to second what Senator Schumer just said about the importance of the supplemental. And I want to say about Senator Schumer that he has led this fight with the kind of passion that you've seen today, both publicly and behind the scenes. So when you ask what are the chances, with Senator Schumer fighting, I think the chances are very, very good.
I have a great team.
But on the sanctions, we're going to name and shame. We're going to recommend for criminal prosecution. We're going to hold accountable the American companies that have increased sales by thousands of % of certain products that contain those chips and semiconductors that are then used for making weapons in Iran, in Russia, and elsewhere. And you're absolutely right to raise this question about the new sanctions. Will they be stringently enforced? Because I know, I'm a former prosecutor, you can have the best law on the books, but it's dead letter if it's not enforced. And I can commit that we are going to open the books, we are going to do everything we can in the United States Congress to expose the flow of these parts and components, as well as the sales of oil, the kinds of support that the sales of oil receive, maybe purposely from American companies, insurance companies and others, because we need to, in effect, strangle the financial resources that are used by Putin to support this war. Everybody thought his economy would be on its back. Hasn't become that kind of economic failure, and in part it's the result of the failure to enforce those sanctions as toughly as they should be.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.